Good evening, everyone, and welcome for joining the public share out of the Mason Public Schools Diversity Committee. This is our public segment. Over the last hour, 15 minutes or so, our group met for a monthly meeting and discussed the various topics and work that we've been doing in regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion. If you're not aware, my name is Craig Kiefner. I'm the Director of Student Support here at Mason Public Schools. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to our district consultant, Dr. Carlin Tishner, who will give a summary of the meeting and lead us into the next portion of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Good evening. Thanks for joining us or listening in on the recording of this meeting. As always, we had a very good meeting. That meeting focused a bit on old business, which included an approval of diversity, equity, and inclusion t-shirt design. The broader committee supported the current design and distribution. What is now going to occur is that administration will identify a practice or process by which those t-shirts will be distributed. Ms. Angie Vanegar will lead that work, and we're excited for that to come to fruition so we can have an illustration of our commitment to this work as a district. This certainly would not be the only illustration of that commitment, and is one example of that commitment. We also talked about our committee norms. As you might be aware, we did add new members to our team, and as a result of being now a standing committee of the superintendent, it was important for us to really highlight the norms that are relevant to us. And one of the norms that were really important was our need to be open to new ideas and to assume and presume positive intentions from our committee members. Also, something that we shared as well was our shared intention to be committed to both self-work and then collaborative work to make change in our community broadly, in the students' lives as well as the teachers' lives. So as we continue to think about that, and this was part of my comments this evening, it's important for us to understand that diversity is representation of different groups and different identities and the intersections of those identities. And so it's important for us to have a shared intention to always be evaluating, understanding, and leading into how we understand others, how we value the experiences of others, and how we then validate and appreciate the human experience, especially those that are different from us. We're typically very passionate about our own lived experience. It's important for us to step out and become empathic about the experiences of others. And in that, I think we can create an environment where folks feel psychologically and emotionally safe. And more importantly, our students feel safe to learn. So that was part of our discussion today. In addition to that, we spoke about our next week's training opportunity for teachers, which is our Teaching for Equity series. We're in session 2 of that, which will focus on advancing equitable practices in teaching. This focuses for any educator in the school environment who is interested to learn more. The district does compensate the time of the teacher or educator interested in learning. And so we are certainly excited for any and all teachers who are available to attend to come and learn with us so that we can grow together. Additional comments that were shared before we allowed the diversity subcommittee chairs to speak is that we talked about the district's protocol for decision making. Now that, again, we are a standing committee, we had to implement a process by which decisions are acknowledged by the committee, approved by the committee, and then pushed into the administration for a decision to be made. And we talked about the reality that it is an accordion, essentially that there are decisions that would be made or recommended by the subcommittee or the broader committee that would then be reviewed by the respective office of Mason. That could be the curriculum office, that could be the superintendent's office, depending on the topic. From there, the review might occur and there might be more clarity needed, which would push the conversation back to the committee level or subcommittee level for more clarity, more information, so that we can get to a point where the implementation is clear and procedural, and that there's some very clear steps for that recommendation to come to fruition. And the last thing that we highlighted, which was the need to really think about what data do we need to continue to collect as a district in order to identify our opportunities for growth. And so as you hear the subcommittee's report this evening, you'll hear them talk about some data points that they are thinking about collecting, ultimately so that we can identify our opportunities and then be strategic around how we are shoring up the gaps that may be present, if they are present, but ultimately, how are we just continuing to improve the conditions of learning and the conditions for teaching and the overall community that is Mason? That concludes my report this evening.
Thanks, Carlin. We will then move into our diversity subcommittee chair reports. And we start with our Community Educational Resources and Communications Subcommittee.
Thank you. I'm Jen Slosher, and we had a great meeting with our new larger team, with our new members. We reviewed our current logic model that we'll be preparing to send to the strategic planning part of the district that will help implement some of the things that we're discussing. We are talking about doing parent surveys so that we can gather understanding of where everyone is with diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what kinds of experiences they or their students have had in our area. We also are discussing having a town hall where we will invite area businesses to come in and discuss what DEI is for them and how that affects their businesses and how that affects how they employ, to help garner more understanding in our community. Also, we are working with the Student Experiences Subcommittee on forming a student group, possibly at the middle school and at the high school, so that students can be a support to one another and also work within the community to do things like Service Day on Martin Luther King Jr. Day or things of that nature. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Now we'll move on to our Educator Development and Resources Committee.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kimberly Clark. My subcommittee met on October 28th, and we discussed how we could make our expectations for our staff more visible. And we started brainstorming what are the foundational topics that we need to have our staff be covered, and what that would look like as far as who needs to have those topics covered and how often we need to revisit those topics. We discussed our ways of learning, with one possible option being through online training modules, and looked at the pros and cons of those. The data points that we want to collect is that the type of PD we would like to have moving forward, or is there other formats that would work better and be more favorable learning environment for our staff? Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Next would be our District Policies, Guidelines, and Practices Subcommittee. However, that subcommittee did not meet in between the last two meetings, and they do not have a report. So we'll move on to our Student Experience Group. Mr. Port.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Port. I'm filling in for Amy Sue, who is typically our head for the Student Experiences Group. Our most recent meeting was postponed, and we're looking to get that rescheduled once Amy Sue returns. We have been working in our subcommittee. Our recent project is the development of several student surveys for different age groups and grade levels. The goal of which is that students can anonymously report on their experiences and rate different aspects of the climate within each of the schools in the district overall. And we're hoping that the collection of some of those data points can help to inform some of our discussions moving forward in the diversity committee. And we are very close to the end of that project, being able to share out with the whole committee. Our next project after that is going to be researching and developing a model for different DEI topics and what would be developmentally appropriate to share with each grade level. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. Next is our Instructional Practices and Curriculum Design Subcommittee. Jan, you're muted.
I'm Jan Allman. I'm a member of the committee. I'm standing in for Mary Hilker. Our big project for the month was planning and implementing a professional development session based on this terrific book, Culturally Responsive Teaching and the Brain. We used content drawn from an article on how to engage students more effectively. We modeled the lesson, which is made up of 4 points: ignite, chunk, chew, review, reflect. We did it at 7:30 at night, which was, we thought might be an optimum time. It turned out not to be as optimum as we'd hoped. So we are now thinking of we did have participants, but not as many as we thought might be available. We are now planning to take it to the various buildings and do mini sessions, probably during faculty meetings, to offer the same opportunity to all of our teachers. And then we're going to plan some further PD sessions based on perhaps contents from this book, as well as from a range of other sources. And we're trying to find out when we think those PD sessions would be the best times for their offerings. So that's where we are. Thank you.
Thanks, Jan. The last subcommittee is the membership subcommittee. Our membership subcommittee didn't technically meet. However, they did spend some time putting out a survey to our new members to place them on their, sorry, I'm distracted for a second, to place them in their various subcommittees. And then they also met to discuss a couple other they didn't meet, but they also worked us through some other pieces for the committee as a whole. And, you know, as I told the big group of the membership committees sort of ebb and flow depending on where we are in the year. We're kind of in an ebb right now for that subcommittee. So at this point, we will, I think Ron was going to share just a little bit about the strategic plan process at the district level and how it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then that will wrap up our public share out of the November Diversity Committee.
Good evening. I just want to again thank all the Diversity Committee members for their hard work and energy in this work that we're engaging in. Certainly exciting to hear all the subcommittees report out and all the work that's going on in the district. I do want to update our public that we are in the process of revising and rewriting our strategic plan. That process is beginning right now. We are getting information from staff and compiling data so that our task force, which will be a 40 to 45 member group made up of community members, students, parents, staff, and they'll pull together in the middle of January to talk about our mission vision, our 3 to 5 year targets, and our 3 to 5 year goals. And so we're looking forward to that work. I know we're going to have quite a bit of diversity committee representation on that task force. So I'm sure that's going to be a topic that will be discussed frequently. That's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Topinski. Any other, I don't think there's anything else, unless there's anything else from our group. I'd like to thank everyone for joining our public share out of the Diversity Committee. As you may have heard at the last public share out, there is a diversity email address that the district has now, diversity@masonkk12.net. If you had any questions for the committee as a whole or that you'd like to direct toward our group, feel free to reach out to us through that public arm. We also appreciate you being here tonight and taking part of this public share out. We'll be back next month with our next installment. Thank you and have a great night.